While the world's attention has been fixed on Gaza, there's another Palestinian struggle unfolding inside Israel itself, one that few are talking about. Nearly 2 million Palestinian citizens of Israel are facing a wave of discrimination and hostility that intensified since October 7th. These individuals, who live as citizens within Israel's borders but strongly identified with their Palestinian heritage, are now feeling more vulnerable and isolated than ever before. In this video, we'll dive into their unique challenges, the identity tensions they navigate daily, and what this all means for the future of Israel's social fabric. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel, type Graphic Man, and do subscribe. The history and reality of Palestinian citizens of Israel reflect a complex legacy of displacement, identity, and ongoing marginalization. Following the establishment of Israel in 1948, 3/4 of the Palestinian population were displaced, but around 150,000 Palestinians remained in what became the Israeli state. Granted citizenship, they now make up about 20% of Israel's population. However, despite their numbers, Palestinian citizens live largely on the margins of Israeli society. The vast majority resides in towns and villages separate from Jewish communities, with only a small fraction, about 8%, living in mixed Jewish-Palestinian cities. Their marginalized status is compounded by Israel's framework of rights and privileges, which are often granted along national lines rather than guaranteed equally to all citizens. Israel does not have a formal constitution that ensures equal rights before the law for all. Instead, policies and laws reinforce divisions. The nation-state law of 2018, for example, declared that the right to self-determination is unique to the Jewish people and removed Arabic as an official language, even though it is indigenous to the region. Additionally, under the Nakba law, any institution receiving public funding can be penalized if it acknowledges or commemorates the Palestinian experience of displacement, making open discussion of their history and identity a potentially risky act. These factors highlight how Palestinian citizens of Israel are not only navigating the legacy of their history, but also facing institutional barriers that reinforce their position as one of Israel's most marginalized groups. Palestinian citizens of Israel experience a distinct separation from their Jewish counterparts, even in the identification documents they carry. Unlike Jewish citizens, their identification cards explicitly mark race and religion, labels that often dictate where they can live and limit housing options for Arabs within Israel. While most Palestinian citizens are eligible to vote, given that they hold Israeli passports, they encounter significant barriers. For example, in the 2019 elections, surveillance cameras were installed in polling stations where Palestinians cast their votes, and residents in regions like the Nakab were forced to travel extensive distances to reach the nearest polling stations, often up to 50 kilometers, 31 miles away. Although a Palestinian party managed to join an Israeli governing coalition for the first time in 2021, it was short-lived and followed by the rise of Israel's most right-wing government to date. Despite facing numerous civic, social, and economic restrictions, Palestinian citizens were notably absent from Israel's extensive protests in 2023 against the government's push to curtail judicial oversight. For many Palestinians, these protests were not seen as an inclusive movement for social justice, but rather as an effort to preserve a status quo that doesn't address the discrimination and racism they face. Consequently, for Palestinian citizens of Israel, the current political landscape underscores the complex, often tenuous reality of navigating both Israeli citizenship and Palestinian identity. The events of October 7th have had a profound impact on Palestinian citizens of Israel, especially for those living near conflict zones. During the Hamas-led attack, 21 Palestinian citizens of Israel lost their lives, 6 were taken hostage, with 2 released during prisoner exchanges, and 1 hostage was killed by the Israeli army in an attempted escape in December. The security situation for Palestinian citizens living in sparsely populated agricultural and herding communities near Gaza has been especially precarious. Lacking adequate state security and emergency shelters, many could not find safe shelter during the escalating conflict. Tragically, at least 7 Palestinian citizens, including 6 children, were killed by missiles fired from Gaza. For those living in Israel's northern district, where Palestinian citizens make up over half of the population, security concerns are also pressing. Around half of these residents lack access to bomb shelters, leaving them vulnerable to potential Hezbollah artillery attacks. Additionally, some Palestinian citizens who were in Gaza on October 7 are living day-to-day lives, permitted to leave, yet were unable to bring their non-Israeli family members along. These developments underscore the increased vulnerability of Palestinian citizens within Israel amidst the ongoing violence and their limited access to safety and security. Since Israel's invasion of Gaza, Palestinian citizens of Israel have faced an intensified atmosphere of suppression and scrutiny. The climate of fear is palpable. Many Palestinian citizens are hesitant to speak about the conflict, even privately. A December poll found that 70% of Palestinian citizens did not feel safe voicing their views about the war on social media. Expressing support for Gaza or criticism of the war has led to severe repercussions, with many losing jobs, facing expulsion from educational institutions, or even being arrested. According to the Emergency Coalition of Arab Society, a civil rights organization, over 100 students have faced disciplinary action, with 27 expelled. More than 100 Palestinian citizens have been fired from their jobs, and 221 have been arrested, largely based on social media posts. Media figures and influencers have been specifically targeted, likely as a deterrent to others. Protests organized by Palestinian citizens have been met with harsh police crackdowns. Though the Israeli Supreme Court ruled against blanket bans on protests, it upheld restrictions on anti-war demonstrations in key Palestinian-majority towns like Sakhnin and al-Fahim. In a notable case, lawyer Ahmad Kaleva was detained for organizing an anti-war rally in October. He was charged with incitement to terrorism, and as of May 2015, he was convicted of racing and assault and possession of guns in Manchester. After 110 days in prison, he was released to home confinement, facing up to 8 years in prison. Restrictions have also extended to information access. On November 8th, the Knesset passed a law criminalizing the persistent consumption of undefined terrorist materials, punishable by up to a year in prison. Authorities have begun seizing mobile phones from Palestinian citizens to monitor their social media and chat groups for possible violations, allowing for detention without bail pending hearings. This evolving framework has created a stifling environment, impacting the rights and daily lives of Palestinian citizens of Israel profoundly. As anti-Palestinian sentiment in Israeli media and rhetoric from some political figures have intensified, so too have incidents of violence and threats against Palestinian citizens of Israel. On October 28, for instance, a mob gathered outside a dormitory for Palestinian students at Netanya College, chanting "Death to Arabs." Though local police and some Palestinian community leaders managed to keep the mob from entering, the situation left the students feeling unsafe, and many returned to their villages for their protection. Other Palestinian citizens have faced graffiti with racist and offensive messages at their workplaces and have received physical threats. Many have felt compelled to stop working in predominantly Jewish or mixed areas due to the hostile environment. This environment has deeply affected the feelings of belonging and safety for Palestinian citizens within Israeli society. Immediately following the attacks, many Palestinian citizens felt a strong sense of solidarity with their Jewish counterparts. According to an Israel Democracy Institute poll, over 70% of Palestinian citizens reported feeling a greater connection to Israel, a record high for a sentiment that has generally hovered around 40% since 2015. Yet a follow-up poll in early December showed a decline, likely influenced by their experiences of unequal protection from authorities, limits on their freedom of speech, and the risks they face in public spaces. The same poll found that nearly half of Palestinian citizens felt uneasy speaking Arabic around Jewish Israelis, and more than half felt uncomfortable entering Jewish or mixed localities for work or daily activities. These shifts highlight a troubling trend for the integration of Palestinian citizens into Israeli society, one that risks lasting division well beyond the current conflict, if these issues remain unaddressed. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel Typographic Man, and do subscribe it.